Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll talk about anything that's been in the news this past week. Jeff, by the way, do we have David Foley scheduled for today?
No, sir.
Okay, we weren't able to hook up with him. We'll talk to him next week. So anyway, we'll talk about anything that's been in the news this past week. So the number is 888-589-8840, and we'll try to weave phone calls in second half of every segment the rest of the way. So if you'd like to call in, the number is 888-589-8840, and we will talk about whatever is on your mind. Now, came across an interesting story just coming across the street, and maybe you'd want to, because I'm curious what you think is the explanation for this. This is a piece from cnsnews.com. Bosses are more likely than workers to identify as Republican and conservative, according to analysis released by Pew Research on Thursday. Pew Research surveyed 2,002 adults from October 7th through the 27th and found that bosses are more likely to identify as members of the Republican Party, with 53% of bosses saying they are Republican or lean to the GOP. Just over a third, 34% of bosses identify as members of the Democratic Party, while most workers at 44% identify as Democrats. And the smallest batch in the whole group were those who call themselves liberal. About 43% of bosses identify themselves not just as Republicans, but as conservatives. Only 17% of bosses identify themselves as liberals. So in other words, that's 2.5 to 1. By a 2.5 to 1 margin, the people that are bosses would classify themselves as conservatives over bosses who classify themselves as liberals. So my question to you is, why do you think that is? Why are bosses, in your judgment, your estimation, more likely to be conservative than to be liberal by a margin of almost 2.5 times? What do you think the explanation for that is? 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Now let's grab a couple of sound bites. Let's start off with the Christie clip number 1, Rob, if we can. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. We talked about this some yesterday, but I want to play the opening statement that Christie made in his apology yesterday, which actually I thought, as apologies goes, was actually quite good. Now, and Jeff played that little tease for you at the open, that if Christie is telling the truth here, and I have no reason to doubt him on this, so I'm not saying I suspect that he's covering something up. If Christie was telling the truth here, if this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, he may come out of this alive. I have my doubts, because I think the media is going to beat him up over this thing from beginning to end, from pillar to post. They're like sharks that smell human blood in the water. It's a feeding frenzy. We talked about that yesterday. Newsbusters did an analysis, and they discovered that the media devoted 17 times as much space in 24 hours to the Christie controversy than they did in 6 months to the IRS controversy. So there's no question that the media is in attack mode. They are search and destroy. They want to obliterate the career of Christie. They want to finish him off. They want him dead, buried, gone, with a gravestone marker placed over his rotting corpse. That's what the media wants. And why is that? Because he's a Republican. It's just as simple as that. And they know that he's a possible Republican candidate for 2016. Certainly not my preferred choice, and I'm sure he's not yours either. But he's a Republican. Doesn't matter if he's liberal, because he is. On most issues, he's moderate, libertarian. He's liberal. Didn't fight to protect natural marriage in New Jersey. Pointed Islamists to the court. Just sponsored the DREAM Act to promote amnesty for lawbreakers, for criminal trespassers. So he's not one of us when it comes to ideology and politically conservative worldview, but he's got an R by his name, and that means they painted a target on his head, and they are trying to take him out. Now, if he told the truth, if there's no smoking gun out there, if there isn't something that comes along that says he knew about this, In other words, we've seen smoking guns all over the place with President Obama. We discovered he knew about the IRS thing way sooner. He knew about Benghazi right away. He knew about all these things. He knew about NSA stuff. He knew about that long before he claimed he knew about it. And now we have the smoking gun. If there's no smoking gun that comes out that indicates that Chris Christie's covering this up, that he's lying to us about when he found out about this, he might live to fight another day. But I'm looking at USA Today here. I'm looking at their feature story, and they've got a big picture of this bridge that everybody's talking about. And they've got a big diagram in there about how the traffic comes off of the George Washington Bridge, and there's 3 lanes, and it funnels down to 3 toll booths, and how Christie's people shut down 2 of the 3 toll booths and 2 of the 3 lanes and jammed everything up, backed up clear into New York. So this is on the front page of USA Today. You've got one of Chris Christie's appointees. He's already pled the 5th before a committee hearing looking to get at the bottom of the bridge deal, and that's not good. I mean, you and I know, ladies, this is not a court trial. This is just a committee trying to get to the bottom of it. When somebody pleads the 5th, I mean, that's just another way of saying I am guilty as charged, because this isn't even in a court of law. So people have already started to file lawsuits against Christie, against the state of New Jersey. So trust me, you're going to have every left-leaning legal group in the country trying to take Chris Christie out over this thing. So this thing is going to have legs. It's not going to go away. It's going to be a problem. But I want you to listen to Chris Christie's apology here. And if he's telling the truth here, this is how you do it. Let's listen. We got
to this office where I've been many times before. And I come out here today to apologize to the people of New Jersey. I apologize to the people of Fort Lee, and I apologize to the members of the state legislature. I am embarrassed and humiliated by the conduct of some of the people on my team. There's no doubt in my mind that the conduct that they exhibited is completely unacceptable and showed a lack of respect for the appropriate role of government and for the people that we're trusted to serve. 2 pieces to what I want to talk about today. The first is, I believe that all of the people who were affected by this conduct deserve this apology, and that's why I'm giving it to them. I also need to apologize to them for my failure as the governor of this state to understand the true nature of this problem sooner than I did. But I believe I have an understanding now of the true nature of the problem, and I've taken the following action as a result. This morning, I've terminated the employment of Bridget Kelly, effective immediately. I've terminated her employment because she lied to me.
So Chris Christie, heads have rolled, 2 people already fired. How many people has Obama fired? 0. He's had the NSA scandal. He's had the IRS scandal. He's had the Benghazi scandal. He's had scandals coming out his ears, and he's never fired one single solitary person. The Obamacare rollout's a disaster. It's a complete and total disaster. We'll talk about that a little later. He hasn't fired anybody, but you see Chris Christie uses the word apologize 5 times in that soundbite. He uses the word embarrassed. He uses the word humiliated. He uses the word failure. Now, I don't think he can completely skate on this, because leaders create an atmosphere around them. And some people have pointed this out, and I think it's a fair observation. People create an atmosphere around them. President Obama, for instance, didn't have to tell anybody, I want you to go out, and I want you to make life as difficult as you possibly can for the Tea Party. He didn't have to give those instructions, because everybody around him knew he would be just fine with that. There's an environment that a leader creates around himself, so there's somehow Chris Christie created an environment around him where people who were closest to him, knew him the best, believed that he would be okay with this, or this somehow was consistent with his political philosophy, the way he wanted to handle things. So, and the Wall Street Journal said, look, you want to compare scandals here. You compare this to the IRS scandal. You compare it to Benghazi. You compare it to NSA. You compare it to the cover-up in the Obamacare rollout. This is like jaywalking. This is like getting pulled over for spitting on a sidewalk. It's a nothing burger compared to the genuine scandals that we've had with President Obama, from whom we have gotten no apology, not one single time, and no accountability. All right, well, let's go to the phones. Let's begin by starting with Al in Houston, Texas. Al, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on. The issue there of Christie, I applaud the man for standing up for what's right. When you have people working under you and they make mistakes, you let them go, and you stand firm in believing that you had them there to do the right thing. Unfortunately, people have made mistakes, and he took care of the issue. I would like to see Washington take the same step. We've had people die in Benghazi. We've had issues, people standing up there saying, I lied to you. Obama's done that quite a bit. He's lied to us on, I don't know how many times. I wish that we could get those people in Washington, Obama start with, to start holding people accountable for the things and the steps that they've taken that's cost people their lives. And I would also like to see the people in Washington stop this unemployment. If they would shut it off, you will have people go back to work. What are we going to do with all of the illegal immigrants whenever they become illegal? If they pass it and say that they're all legal to stay here now, they're going to take our jobs. They're going to get on the unemployment line. They're going to be taking what few jobs that are out there off the market, and you're going to have more unemployment. Are we just going to have another welfare system of unemployment?
Yeah. Well, and you make a really good point, Al. We'll talk about immigration a little bit later in the program, but you make a really good point about unemployment, that the longer that unemployment is extended, the less incentive people have to look for work. And the less incentive they have to take jobs, they hold out for higher paying jobs. In other words, if you got no income coming in, then you will be prepared to take a job that maybe pays less than you would prefer because you want to eat. You want to be able to keep a roof over your head. You got a family that's depending upon you. So it may not be the perfect job, but if you've got unemployment benefits that are greater than minimum wage coming in, what's your incentive to take that second tier job? None. And so it lingers. It causes unemployment to actually grow. Focal Point AFR Talk.